Hi, I'm Paul Clarkson. I was the president of the Newcastle Business Club in 1988, the bicentenary year of Australia, and I served on the committee of the club for about 15 years. When I was president in 1988, the club was a far busier place, perhaps, as far as guest speakers were concerned. In those days, we met every week, and it was the duty of the committee and the president to obtain 44 speakers every year. And that was quite a task. And in those days, in 1988, we met at the club in Watt Street, the Tattersalls Club, and that was our home, and we had our lunches there, and probably we didn't have as many people attending as we do today with the club, but it was a very good community feeling club, and the idea was that members came along just to be with each other and to catch up and enjoy a good speaker. 1988 was a fairly important year to the club because, being the bicentenary year, we decided in the previous year that we would make some contribution, and we thought about that, and we ended up purchasing. We'd put away $10,000, and that money went towards buying a petrified tree, and that tree today is in the Newcastle Museum. It's not recognised in the Newcastle Museum as coming from the business club, but that is the contribution we made. That tree came from a place called Blackwater in Queensland, and we were helped by the Newcastle University to acquire that tree, and it took its place in the museum down the end of Hunter Street, where it was in those days, and it received certain notoriety and interest. So that was the important part of what we did that year. We thought it was quite a contribution, and we still have the annual awards, and in those days it was usually just given to one single entity, either a person or an organisation or a corporation. And that year, in 1988, we presented the award to the Newcastle City Council for the beautification of the foreshore. And coincidentally, the Lord Mayor at that time was Mr. John McNaughton, and of course he was a previous president of this club. But Joy Cummings was instrumental in the formation of the new foreshore, and that stood us in great stead ever since. It's interesting that a present council perhaps might have been more interested in destroying it rather than building it up. However, that's just a personal opinion. In the early days, when I first joined the club, and in my time in the club mostly had speakers that weren't necessarily from the business community. They were people of interest and who were interesting to listen to. And we seem to have moved away from that to being more, all our speakers seem to have some sort of business bent. And I think that can be better if we look for speakers that have just good public appeal and who make a lunchtime more pleasant and relaxing when you're there. I was very good friends with the Lamarchant family, and I was in another life then. I finished my working life as a real estate agent, but before I was a real estate agent, I ran a drawing office for the Department of Planning on the corner of Auckland and King, which was the Northumberland County Council, which probably nobody ever remembers these days. And the Marchant family owned Dickens and Carey across the road, and they were very much involved in the business part of the city. And so I used to go along with them to the business club when it met at Wynn's Shortland Room in King Street on the corner of the Wynn's building. And I suppose I started going there in the late 60s and would have become a member soon after that. And it was a very, very popular club in those days. It was very, very well attended, and a lot of people came. So that's when I became interested in the club, and I've just stayed with that interest off and on. I mean, there have been periods when I've fallen away, but mostly I've enjoyed all the times I've been member of the club. So the club has been a wonderful club for me. As we know, it's been going since 1933. It's gone through transitional periods over that time, but it's always been a good place to be. And of course, in 1988, it was a men's club, but probably 15 years later, I think the first women's president was woman president was in the year 2000. I'm not quite sure about that. And of course, the club has gone ahead in leaps and bounds since our ladies have been with us. And of course, it's important that our president this year, in our 85th year, Ollie Martin, is president and will take us on to great heights.
Visit www.newcastlebusinessclub.com.au to learn more.